with the new album, Dark Connection, how far do you think you came from the first two albums, Berserker, and then the last album, From Hell with Love, with the writing?
Well, material-wise, I don't think it's that different. It's just a little bit like expanded version of the Beast in Black trademark style. You know, a bit heavier, but at the same time, more keyboards as well. But you still recognize it easily as our like style. You know, there's the same type of kind of sense of melody, chord progressions, the drum beats, and the arrangements. Everything is kind of recognizable as our style, but just enough of the freshness in it, so it's not like, so it doesn't sound like the same like the previous two albums. We'd like to think so.
I don't think it does, because it seems like it has a lot more keyboards on this album than the last two. Am I kind of off with that, or was there really a lot more attention to that this time?
Yeah, there are more keyboards there. It's just what the songs needed. It's not that, you know, when the album is under making, it's never like, okay, let's make an album that has so much keyboards or so much of something. You just have to listen to each song as an individual and do it according to that, you know, trust your creative instinct and your subjective view when it comes to art. I mean, if you give one song to any other producer from this Dark Connection album, I mean, only when it was still in its really raw form, and then some other producer would have taken it way different direction, maybe, you know, like lots of less keyboards and stuff like that, but still the melody would remain the same, and the chord progressions, which are the most important thing. Everything else is just a matter of the subjective view of the producer and the composer, like, but yeah, what I want to say with this is I think all the three albums are like musically, they grow from the same place, you know, so in that sense they are not too different, but the production is different. Like, you hear every album has its own character, like sound wise.
Yeah, and the feel of the album as you go through the playthrough, it feels like, because I know you are into a lot of the sci-fi and the anime, it feels like each song really fits something that you followed along the way. And I know I took a beating from my own viewers because I did a reaction on what song was that? Moonlight Rendezvous. And
Yeah.
I'd never seen Blade Runner, so I didn't quite get the concept of the video. And people were like, how could you not get that? And I'm like, well, tune me in. And they were like, have you never seen Blade Runner? I was like, that's the key. So I went back and I watched Blade Runner, and it totally made sense at that point. And I wonder if some of the fans, when they interpret what they hear, if they miss some of that, if they don't follow along with the sci-fi and the anime and the books that you read. Do you think that fans often don't get that, or is it you find that they just kind of openly interpret how they hear the music?
Yeah, I don't mind if someone has totally like if someone's interpretation is way off from what I meant with the song, because that's the point of art. Everyone has the right to have their own interpretation. And just an example, I remember once reading some comment, I think it was Born Again from the first album. Someone wrote that, yeah, that song is about Berserk, the anime and manga, which it totally isn't. So it's some, but I don't think it's a bad thing if they kind of imagine some part of the Berserk manga story, what this song is about, and if it makes them feel like uplifted or somehow reinforces the escapism into that story, then it's only a good thing if it inspires them and if they enjoy it. But if you really like know, for example, what some music video like Moonlight Rendezvous is about, it maybe gives a kind of maybe you will start to value more that music video if you know what it's about. But apart from that, I still believe that any piece of art should be able to stand on its own, no matter if the viewer doesn't know anything about it. You know, if the art itself speaks to the person, it means that there's some like worthy content in it, just for the reason what it is itself. You know, and that's what I believe in more than like making these references to some animes or Blade Runner. Those are secondary in that sense. So the songs and visual art, films, books, they should be on their own. And actually, just a side notion, that is what I don't really like what's happening in the film industry. Everything is just a sequel or a remake or something like that, especially with this Marvel stuff. I'm so tired of those. It's just like the bread and butter of Hollywood. That's what I do with that. Oh, it's already like existing brand. Let's make a movie out of it. But if some young film director approaches them, hey, I have this great story which I wrote. Well, what is it based on? Nothing. I wrote it. I came up with it myself. Well, goodbye then. So I kind of consciously am against that, especially in these days. It's kind of a thing that you should already, that the viewer should already have some preconception about the thing that he or she is watching or listening. But art should be like strong on its own. That's my bottom line.
Yeah, and I agree with what you say, because I know when I listen to an album and I may have not read anything on it, I might just toss an album in, and as I'm listening, my mind is already forming what I think it is, and I'm seeing what a video would be like. That's just the way my brain grabs it. And I agree with you at that. With the remaking of everything in Hollywood, it skips a lot of these awesome independent artists, whether it's film or music or just art itself, whether you're putting it down on a medium. A lot of things tend to be skipped because people want, I guess, to grab that biggest bang, but they forget about the creative side of artistry.
Yeah, exactly. You know, if you think about James Cameron films, you know, Terminator came in '84. It wasn't a brand; it was a brand new thing. It turned into a brand, but
Yeah.
original story. Of course, he had his own influences, like for that film. Obviously, like he had seen the Westworld, the original one from the '70s, and a couple of other. I can't remember what was the TV series. I think it was from the '60s. There are a couple of like black and white episodes which clearly have like Terminator references. But anyway, then he made Abyss, True Lies, Titanic, Avatar, all like. Sorry, True Lies is not original. It's based on a French film, but kind of a reinterpretation. But anyway, like huge films like Titanic and Avatar were his own kind of. They were not based on a like some Marvel hero or something. Well, Titanic is a historical film based on a historical event, but not like a brand that people kept like selling in film industry or a sequel or something. And the worst thing is that in that film you cannot even have a sequel. You know, the ship sinks to the bottom of that ocean and that's it. So I guess the film industry bosses were like, they hated that they loved it, because they couldn't make a sequel or anything.
Yeah, and it actually visually was a really great movie. And I think especially for the time that it came out and where we are today with how the graphics and animation have gone so crazy that it wasn't then, and having to do those different styles to film something has its own fit. Let me ask you, so you seem to be a real like film buff and book buff, and when you're looking back at like TV shows and films, do you think any of the scores that you heard on the soundtracks playing through maybe inspired part of your musical writing as you're composing?
Yeah, everything affects the composing throughout our lives, which we live. All the good things remain in the back of our minds, and when you write something, ideas come like from your subconscious sometimes. You don't even remember where did some melody came from, but you just feel that, hey, I want to put it here as I write, and then maybe later you realize, hey, now I know where I got this melody from, and you're surprising yourself, man, it wasn't my own idea, but I realized it came from somewhere else. But it's automatic, and that's how it works. You just like take in all the good stuff and connect it in your own way. And same thing with the films and the soundtracks. Many times I even see a really bad movie, but there's some kind of a short good musical theme or like riff or melody. I remember I watched with a friend of mine, was it Soldier or something like that? There was Kurt Russell in it, in the main role, and it was directed by this Paul W.S. Anderson. And it was a really bad movie in my opinion, but there was one part I was like, hey, what is this? I noticed some nice like melodic clip, and that already affected me. Everything affects like whatever we hear like in our everyday lives.
Absolutely. And let me ask you this. Do you think at some point in your career, because I've read other places where you said you just haven't even reached maybe 1% of what you want to do, that you might somewhere down the road really start doing your composing for films?
Well, I think that's never gonna happen. Maybe yes, I'm not against it, but it all depends, what kind of film and so forth. I'm not dreaming of, going to Hollywood and I think the golden age of Hollywood, that's already long gone, but still in the 80s and 90s there were great stuff. I think the golden age, was it in the 50s or when was it? I can't remember, but anyway, the time when they were letting people be creative and more free. And I'm not sure if it's ever going back, so I'm not really like interested in doing that. But some independent film, not this kind of a blockbuster film that has like hundreds of millions of budget, then it's all that those are always dictated by the producers. All the producers want their own thing in the movie, and then it's like a mess, in my opinion. But yeah, that's one thing, writing kind of soundtrack-ish music for film or for some, maybe even like some old school like games, like Nintendo or Super Nintendo. If someone makes again new games with those type of graphics, that would be nice to like write songs for those. Really like simple 4-track or 6 or 8 tracks of instruments.
Something super memorable, because those, I'm like, as you're saying them, I'm actually hearing the music play in my head from all the years of sitting there and playing Nintendo.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of that. I have like Nintendo right here, there on a table behind this computer. And
so Dark Connection. I think a lot of people probably think that you wrote this during the lockdown for COVID, and I don't think that I heard that that's where it came from. Has this been out and written for a long time, or did you develop some of this during the COVID situation?
Most of the stuff was written before 2020. It's more about like connecting the old and new ideas. Whenever there's an album process approaching for Beast in Black, I start to go through my old ideas and complete songs and half-ready songs. I have a huge catalog of material that I've written for the last more than 20 years. No, or about 20 years. I think it was 2000 or 2001 when I started to write on a computer with a program and save the ideas there. But of course, I don't go through all of them when I start to go through the material for an album. There's no point. I just kind of select certain area and then I go through it and think, okay, hey, this sounds like I want to work on this. Then I take an old idea and complete it. And meanwhile, new ideas, like totally fresh ideas, also are born, and then I write new songs at the same time. So end result is always a hybrid of past and present. It's difficult to say, it's impossible to say when it was exactly written, because, for example, in one song, Hardcore, the chorus melody is 10 or 15 years old idea. And for the first time, I thought, hey, now I'm going to use that melody. It's been waiting there for over 10 years. And I changed maybe like 2 notes or something like that, and that's it. But the rest of that song is actually new stuff. So that song itself is already a hybrid. But some songs are entirely old and some songs are entirely new. And it's always the same thing for every Beast in Black album since Berserker. And actually that has been the case in my whole career with my previous band Battle Beast as well. Always I go through the same kind of process, going through hundreds and hundreds of like files and then being inspired at the same time. And I cannot stop the inspiration, so I just go and write a song in one day or 1 week or something. But the lyrics are the next thing, and those I wrote in 2020. It took maybe half a year, like really long. It's my Achilles heel, so to speak. Like, I'm not so fast with the lyrics, but they are important to me. That's why I want to like take the time, and those are all like new, basically, material. But the reason why it takes so much time is not that there's no idea what the song is about or not coming up with like sentences. I can easily write like a prose type of a poem, like 10-15 minutes, but that's free writing. But when you have a melody, those are your frames, and you cannot change a single note. And then you still want to tell the same thing which you already wrote on the paper freely, but you cannot place, the syllables don't match. And sometimes even if syllables match, the stress of a word is in a spot in a melody where it sounds unnatural, so you cannot use it like that. And fighting with those small things takes, half a year. Like writing the perfect lyric that matches the idea that you had and making it fit to the melody without compromising the melody. Many Finnish bands, I think they compromise the melody all the time. They stretch like some syllable in an unnatural way. I hate when I hear that. Sometimes you can stretch the syllables. It's normal. They do that in opera and classical music, when the singers, but sometimes it's just awkward sounding, and I avoid that. I don't think there's a single syllable that's out of place or unnatural, to me at least, on this album.
And it helps with having an absolutely amazing vocalist, because with Yannis, he seems to just be able to either hold a note and sustain it super long, or he just punches in and just boom, gets it right out. And I know he's just like one of those hardworking vocalists who will keep going until you guys get the right takes on it. How do you feel he has grown over the 3 albums? Because I noticed on this, as soon as the album started and Blade Runner started, the vocals were a little bit different, and I almost caught myself going, "Who's singing on this song?" So, do you think he's really grown from the first album to this one, working with you?
Yeah, he's even more like insane perfectionist like me than in the beginning. So it's, in that sense, he's grown. Like, it took many times more time to get everything done, vocal recording wise and editing wise, because we both hear the same things when we record the takes. We don't even have to like explain to each other what was bad or what was good in some take. So we really see eye to eye 99.9% of the time. And the more, with pandemic also, we had more time. So we just went insane with that kind of, if anything bothered in the vocals in any like take in any syllable. We just didn't stop until it was all there. And half of the time went into like working, like sitting next to each other and like choosing takes, editing, and like checking stuff out. But half of the time went to the recording itself. And it's like you said, he doesn't stop until it's like 100%. He doesn't care if we have to record some take, 100 times. He will do it. But luckily we haven't had to do it like 100 times. That's insane. But there have been like some parts which required quite many takes, but we got it anyway.
Yeah.
And he's also really musical, so that helps. It's not just being a singer, but he has really strong musicality in him. That helps working like together in studio. He understands the context as well, not just his own voice, but the context where his voice is going to be. So he helps me with that.
Yeah, I think that's really important for a vocalist to have that as well. And I know from like the first album, people kind of went crazy when they realized, the song Frozen, that it was not a female vocalist as part of the band, because I think a lot of people were like, who's hitting that note? And to see the style, and I go and I watch reaction videos all the time still on that video, because I think it's so funny to watch people with their first coming to Beast in Black, and then to hear the other songs along the way and the progression of his voice. It's always, you're interested to hear what's coming, but you never really know what's coming until you actually get to hear it. So it's a cool experience with him.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to your live shows, I actually got the chance to catch you, because I don't believe you guys had actually made it to the States yet for a real tour, but I caught you guys at Sweden Rock when you were played, and your stage stuff is so much fun, and you guys look like you have so much fun together. How do you guys go through the process of deciding what you're going to do during your shows, and then the connection in the reaction you guys have with each other and the balance? Is that real and organic, or do you guys really get along like that outside of Beast in Black?
Yeah, we do get outside of the stage like that as well, because if we wouldn't, it would be like too like heavy on our psychology, to continue these long tours and repeat it and fake it on stage. We wouldn't be able to take it like psychologically. So luckily we are all like honestly enjoying the stuff on stage. There have been gigs when some of us feel really bad. I've been there. The bass player is Yannis, the bass player is Mate. Sorry, I have to use names. Kasperi and Atte. Everyone has bad days occasionally. You cannot do about anything about that. But even on those days, we kind of know that we have to, try to give people what they came for. And on stage, it's mostly choreographies that we kind of learned in the rehearsals. We always have this 1 week rehearsal after each album is completed, and then we kind of go through what we do in each song. But there's some room for improvisation a little bit, and sometimes we like do that free stuff. But even if we go through things that are with choreography, it actually makes it even easier to relax on stage and smile and enjoy, because I myself, for example, am a person who kind of can get easily stiff and locked if I don't know what to do. When I know what I have to do on stage, I'm more relaxed, and I can smile and have this kind of a connection with the guys there, because I don't have to think what to do. I know what I'm doing, and when you repeat it show after show, it comes automatically, and that's how, at least for me, that's why it works and why I'm able to enjoy it as much as I do.
Now, have you guys ever had anyone, while you've been out on tour, experience an issue where they've either like fallen off stage or something that the crowd just didn't expect, but you had to keep going with the show?
Of course, I think in our on our European tour 2019, was it the first leg or the second, but doesn't matter. The PA went off. It was the ballad song, Ghost in the Rain, and the PA just, everything shut down. And we just played. We didn't know what to do. We heard just the drums and the singer, a little bit of his voice acoustically. And that was like a really cold moment. And luckily something happened and the power went back on in 15 seconds or so. And it seems like no one even noticed. It felt so weirdly like it's part of the show almost, because it came almost like rhythmically in a way that power cut down came like, you know, in the first beat of some part of a song. So it felt like it's like planned, and then it again like turned on almost like in a one beat where it's supposed to, and it felt like, wow, was it planned or not? But it was not, and it was horrible, you know, when the PA is not on. And of course we've played stuff, played songs without monitors working, like sometimes. So you cannot hear yourself. The PA is on, but there's no idea like how does it sound outside, because you don't hear on stage. What do you play? What does the singer do? You just hear the drums. But that's all right. I have fallen off stage, but not with Beast in Black. Right in front of the people, like.
Oh, ouch. Did they at least try to catch you? That's the worst.
No, it was a kind of a spot that there were no people. The stage front was like, it wasn't a straight line, but it had these gaps. And I remember there was kind of a dark lighting at that moment, and I didn't see where to put my foot, and I just put it on an empty spot and fell down like. So
ouch.
It's I put that on my checklist. Done.
So let me ask you this. With the album coming out on the 29th, is there any concern with the COVID situation and about not being able to tour with the album?
I think we will be able to tour. I'm quite optimistic about it. But I feel that we're approaching the kind of normal ways of life are gonna come back soon, I hope. And if not this year, then next year, the latest, I believe that we'll be able to tour. We have planned an EU tour for November and December this year, but nothing is for certain. You know, every day things change, but I believe at latest that next year we'll be able to pull off some tours. And anyway, the plan is to squeeze everything out of from Dark Connection, you know, to tour 2, 3, or even 4 years, you know, like heavy, massive worldwide touring. That is the plan. So I believe in the next few years there definitely will be a situation that's improved, at least COVID wise. And whenever there's like whenever there is no chance to tour, of course we just do creative stuff, you know, work on new material and new videos, and there's a lot of things you can do. Only the imagination is the limit.
Yeah.
So I'm not concerned about, like, you know, those survive who are able to adapt. That's how I think. So I believe Beast in Black will always be able to adapt in any kind of situation. So that's why I'm not really that concerned. But I'm more concerned that about the overall situation. Like, I hope that, you know, the world will be normal, not just for the touring sake or band's sake, but for people's sake. But as I said, I'm actually quite optimistic, even though, well, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, because tours aren't the only thing that took a bite from COVID. There's mental health crisis around the world that was there before COVID has just completely blown up to unimaginable numbers now. And this whole situation has really changed the environment of the world and how people react with each other.
Yeah.
So one last question for you. What do you have to say to the fans that have already found Beast in Black and the new ones that will be coming along, finding you guys with the new album?
Well, I hope that the already existing fans can kind of appreciate the new things that they will find in us, so they don't always and hopefully with that they understand that Beast in Black is a kind of a band that always tries to recreate its own skin a little bit, you know, so to keep fresh. And for new fans, I hope that they will be instantly hooked after they listen to any of the songs, and hopefully become familiar with the 2 first albums as well after that. And you know, until we tour close to, you know, your hometowns, home cities, and home countries, you know, I hope everyone takes care of themselves, their family and friends, and when we come to the shows, just be there and enjoy the music and the smiling band.
Absolutely. I say, because I've seen you guys. And so I was excited that I actually got to see you, because a lot of my friends where I live over here are like, I've been dying to see Beast in Black. And I'm like, well, once they get here, it's going to be worth the wait. But, you know, that's the people just are dying for shows right now. So
Yeah.
I think you'll have a great reaction once you guys are back out on the road. So
Yeah, I really hope so. Like, we're hungry for that.
yeah, I think bands and fans together are super ready for everything to get back to normal. So I'm super excited for Dark Connection, because the album is really, really good. And knowing the other 2 albums that came before, and I mean, Crazy Mad Insane is still my all-time favorite track of all the songs so far. And I'm like, that just the whole writing connection in that song was so cool. And there's some of those types of songs in the new album that are going to make people just go, wow, that's really cool. What are they doing on this? And then that, again, the people are going to be able to digest it and interpret it to fit however they think it's supposed to fit in their own reality.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time.